glad to have you here today with the CViConnect Stepping Up project. Today we have an interview with Tina Jushi Caruso. She is an adult who has lived her whole life with CVI, and we are excited to hear her perspective on life as an adult with CVI. Welcome, Tina.
Hello.
Hi, thank you so much for being here with us today. So let's get started with just that diagnosis process. So can you tell me, how did you get your CVI diagnosis?
It started in 2012 when I first went to eye doctors, a specialty care in Boston. But before that, I had learning disabilities like ADHD, dyslexia, and other learning disabilities, including nonverbal. And I was having I got diagnosed with those. But from 2012 was when we started diving into my vision. But before then, we always thought it was just dyslexia or my learning disabilities that were making me unable to see what I was doing. But why I was so scared of being out in the world. But I went to one eye doctor's, I went to another specialist, and they could not figure out why. And when I went to Perkins Low Vision Clinic, they finally was like, I met with this eye doctor when I was 19 years old, 18, 19-ish. And she was, they said that the symptoms I was having was definitely CVI. And not all my other learning disabilities that people were trying to coat my CVI as.
Wow. And how old were you when you finally got that CVI diagnosis?
19.
Wow, that had to have been difficult for you early on. What other optic diagnosis do you have?
Nystagmus, optic nerve atrophy, which they actually found during but with my CVI diagnosis, we have no idea why I have it. It could be because of the orphanage situation I was in. It could be genetic. We don't know, but I'm adopted, so we have no idea why I have CVI, but we know that I have it.
As a student in school, you and your education team growing up, you didn't know that you had CVI. So I imagine you had to find ways to kind of compensate for your vision when you didn't even realize what it was that you were dealing with. So can you tell me some of the things that worked really well for you in school now that you can look back and know what it was that you actually were dealing with and helped you compensate for what you now know is CVI?
But mainly my CVI affects how I see things and how I read things. So when I read things, which they thought this was dyslexia, which this is not dyslexia. They thought that when I was reading 12 font Roman in the textbook, I would see double, and then my brain would go completely black. The teachers tried to help me. My school tried to help me. After I got my CVI diagnosis, in college, I started figuring out what worked best for me, and I started modifying. And I was having a real hard time with all the math. So I was like, let me try use color. So say it was each number, say it was a 6, the 6 would be pink, then there would be multiplication, and then the 7 would be green, and then there would be parentheses around those, and then plus, and then the variable would be a different color, like purple. And then I would go down the list of the math by using the color coding and figuring it out. So each step had a color to it. And because my vision likes to go double and black out, even if it blacks out or gets really blurry, I would know that blob of color, say the green, was it a 6? Okay. Or was the Y? Because I always the color helped me make sure I knew what I was doing, even if I could not see it.
Now, the other thing that I remember you telling me, and I don't know where this fits in your educational journey, but you also talked to us about how you use music and some parodies and things like that to help you.
Yes,
Can you
that
tell
was
us a little bit
high
more about
school,
that?
but still I used like parodies of music. Like my favorite one was, it came out in 2013. It was Carly Rae Jepsen's Call Me Maybe to PEMDAS.
Yeah.
And I learned that, but I just felt like I just memorized that. But I felt like once I incorporated like the music videos like that, plus the color, it just clicked much more
Okay.
than just trying to listen to the music and then just be like trying to write it down.
That
It
makes
clicked much
sense.
better once I was able to have access to color and have access to figuring out the best way to do math for myself.
Is there something that teachers tried that did not work for you, or made it harder for you to use your vision and participate in an activity?
I guess it's always gonna be having everything up on a whiteboard or a presentations in front of the class with a lot of like images, like slides, having a ton of images on it, way too many. Plus sometimes they'll have like tiny font. I'm like, what are you doing? I can't see that. But it's mostly presentations that are really busy.
It's hard to know where your attention should be visually when you have so much going on a page to find which information they're referring to in that moment.
But also like figure out which colors of each slide. Like white does not work with gray. Black does not work with gray. Figure out which colors go well with the slide so that kids can actually see if it's a gray item, because CVIers tend to not have a good hold on the grayscale.
Yeah, definitely making high contrast.
Like being able to even just be able to make out just a little bit of it.
It's a lot of similar colors on a scale all at one time, which can make it really tricky. Tina, can you tell us a little bit more about your current education adventure and what you're hoping to do with your degree once you finish? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I have no idea what I want to do with my degree once I finish, but I just kind of want to just get a degree in photography so that maybe I actually have a dream of becoming a camp photographer I was thinking originally for able-bodied camps, but I'm realizing now that maybe just visually impaired or disability camps would be more accepting of me and would want a photographer that's disabled to come to the camp and take photos of the campers, because that might give the campers saying like, I can be a photographer if she's a photographer, like setting a role model of what you can do with limitations versus being like, you can't do that because you don't have sight, or you can't do that because you have like one arm. You can do that. It's just going to be different than it's going to be a different path than an able-bodied person trying to do photography.
Absolutely. Tina, I just want to say a few things about that because number one, I hope that anyone who's listening to this recording goes back and listens to that again, because everything you said is so powerful and important for people to hear. We've made a lot of progress in our field, but we still have so much more to go. And I think it's important that we all understand and hear those voices and make sure that we are getting the input from the individual on what they want to do with their lives and making sure that we try to break down those barriers. The other thing that I want to say, you mentioned the photography for the camps. And
yeah,
you are a fantastic role model, regardless of where you go. So whether you are at an able-bodied camp or you are at a camp for children with disabilities, I think that you will be an incredible role model. So wherever you decide to go, you just talked about how limiting some things can be because of people's disabilities.
I'm so scared for this weekend because I'm actually going down to New York with my running group that I just started like a month and a half ago. It's called Achilles International. I'm doing the Boston chapter, but my friends are running the New York Marathon this weekend, and through one of my friends, I got I don't know how to describe it, but I got word that someone needed a photographer to take photos of the team, so I'm going to go down there and do that. But I'm scared that I'm going to mess up the photos for them.
Stop. Congratulations on such an incredible opportunity. And I hope that this shows you and gives you that courage inside to realize just how fantastic you are. I mean, Dawn and I have seen your work, and we have one actually here in my office. And so I'm in awe of the work that you do. Here, for example, is something that you posted on Instagram. It says that your favorite item is your camera. A camera helps me see the world. It helps me be able to show what CVI looks like for me. It helps me cope with vision loss. I think it's so powerful. If anyone else wants to take a look at some of the other photos that she's posted, follow her at Blindsided in Boston. It's definitely worth taking a look. Tell me about how you use your art and your photography passion to relate to your CVI diagnosis.
That's a good question. It's more like I see things differently than what other people see. Like, because I have facial blindness and spatial blindness, so half the time I don't know who I'm with or where I am. So if suddenly I see like light's a huge thing in my photography in general. Light and color are a huge component of it. So say if I'm walking down the street and it's like golden hour outside and I see like the perfect leaf, or just look up at the trees and it's like a perfect like golden fall leaf. Do you get fall in?
Yes, we do.
So it's like perfect, like fall, orange, red, and it's like hitting perfect. I'll take a photo, because normally people are just like, oh, that's just a fall day. Oh, that's not that beautiful. I've seen that a million times. But for me, my photography is almost like, oh, I've never seen that before, even if I've seen it a million times, because my brain doesn't register I've seen it before.
As an individual with CVI, what would you like educators and others to know about your CVI or your journey with CVI?
First of all, this journey with CVI tends to be very complicated, and there's lots of roadblocks, and it just gets really frustrating sometimes. I know some families just that feel so burnt out by the time they get the CVI diagnosis that they don't even want to celebrate it, because it's just been a long haul of just advocating, like people not listening, advocating, and then by the time they get it, they're like, I'm so burnt out, I don't care anymore. I'm glad my child has this, but I just cannot advocate anymore. So it's just a very long, hard road that many people don't understand, and don't understand the trauma around it, and like the trauma the kids have gone through sometimes. But I just feel like the teachers need to be listening to the parents, the kid, and they should not be dismissing it. Their asks for accommodations or just things the kid needs to succeed in school. Also, what I want others to know are like eye doctors and stuff, is that sometimes if you go to extremes with ocular and retinal and you don't see anything except like optic nerve or anything with the optic nerve, look into CVI, because it might be the case. I just feel like I wish there was more transparency and understanding that CVI can happen at any time, and it can happen because of a traumatic thing. And I just wish people understood that.
Hopefully with things like this, recordings of amazing people like you coming forward and telling us your story, we can kind of begin to have that awareness being spread, and people can share the word, and we can learn more and do better. Yeah.
Well, and we certainly appreciate your participation in this project. You are one of the first adults with CVI speaking out at a national level. And those things that you talked about in terms of people needing to learn about this and needing to understand what individuals with CVI need, how it can affect their lives, and what professionals can do about that. We sure appreciate your sharing your story and your advice to professionals in the field. Thank you.
You're welcome.